Hi, thanks for joining me on the Everything and Anything and a Bit Gay podcast. I'm your host, Zach Randles-Friedman. Today, I am going to tell you a little bit about some changes that are happening in my house. So we got in a very bad habit for a very long time on ordering Uber Eats and DoorDash and Grubhub. And we have ordered from every single restaurant in this area. And there's many restaurants. And I just got so sick of getting food that was delivered that was either cold or missing part of the order or missing half of the order, bad quality food when it's delivered. And I got so tired of it. So I decided I was going to start cooking again. And, well, not again, because I'll just say I never liked cooking. But over the last several years, I've been trying to cook more. So I go to Instacart and I order my food. And my husband has access to my Instacart. And for some reason, he gets alerted whenever, and I feel like I need to change the password on Instacart so he won't make any changes. Because whenever I go in and I place my order, and whenever I hit place the order, you still have time to add food to these orders before the person starts shopping. So he goes in and he starts removing stuff that I've added to the cart without telling me or why. And he says, oh, well, we have that in the cabinet, or we have that in the refrigerator already. We don't need that. And I'm like, stop touching my order. Like, I'm ordering things for a reason. But then he'll go in and he'll add a bunch of stuff, which is fine. He can add whatever he wants, but he drinks a different type of milk than I drink. And he ended up adding 2 milks in there. I don't know. Just we just go back and forth. I need my own Instacart cart because I don't need anybody bothering the stuff that I buy. Because I know what we're making for dinner because I'm the one that makes the dinner. I know what ingredients we need. And what he did this past weekend, he's like, well, we're out. Why don't we go to the grocery store? And I hate going to the grocery store. I just don't like it. And the problem is also whenever I go to the grocery store, I end up spending a lot more money than I would on Instacart because I see all this stuff I want. So we're going down an aisle, I'm like, oh, Entenmann's donuts. I haven't had those in 6 months or a year. Let's get those. Oh, I like those cookies. So, I buy those cookies. And if I was on Instacart, none of that would have been bought. Or ooh, there is a pork roast that is organic and grass-fed or whatever, all the organic, really good food for you. And I would have just probably bought the organic roast, but I had to buy the one that's has lived in a castle its entire life. So when we go to the grocery store, I'm just buying all this crap that I don't need. Or I'm like, oh, those are cool sponges. Let's try those, even though we have 400 sponges under our sink already and we don't need any of that stuff. But then we go to this grocery store and I'm looking for a pork tenderloin. None. I asked the butcher, do you have pork tenderloin? Oh, it'd be over there to the right. Okay, well, I went and looked. There's nothing there. Nobody wanted to help. It seems like half the stuff was out of stock. I'm walking around. There's 1,000 people in the grocery store. It's just miserable going in there I don't know where anything is in the grocery store since I never go. So let's say I'm looking for a taco kit because I want to make tacos. I don't know what aisle it's under. So it means I have to go down 400 aisles to find the taco kit. When if I was on Instacart, I could just type in El Paso taco kit and there it is and add it to the cart. Yes, there are fees and you have to tip the person to deliver your food, but it's, for me, not having to go to the grocery store, it is worth every penny. So, and if you have, all of my friends also say, oh, I'm so sick of ordering out. My friend Jennifer says, I'm so sick of ordering Uber Eats or DoorDash because it always comes and we have to always report that something's missing and they give us a credit and it's just like a game. So I don't know how these companies actually make money because they never deliver anything the correct way, at least to our house. So Anyway, let's get into my guest today. Her name is Leanne. She is an author. She wrote a book. I loved her story. I loved what her book is about. Traveling and the lesbian relationship, all the things of a good book. So enjoy my interview with Leanne. And if you think somebody would like to hear Leanne's story or would like to maybe buy her book, be sure to share the episode. Thanks for following and thanks for listening. Thanks so much for joining me on the Everything and Anything and a Bit Gay podcast. I have a new guest on my show today, and her name is Leanne Walling. She is an author, and what's interesting about her is that she decided to get her master's degree at the age of, is it 67 or 68, Leanne?
68.
68, and
Yep.
then this is your first novel, correct?
Correct.
Yep. So we're on here to kind of learn all about and to jump into the novel. But she has a very interesting life that I wanted to go through and talk about that. So we'll start there. So welcome to the show, by the way.
Thanks so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
So tell me about your life, because you have had a very interesting life. You've changed directions of your life, of your career. You've done everything from kind of design to politics to kind of like walk us through the different things that you've done in life.
Sure. Thanks. I started off, I went to college. This will definitely give my age away. I started college in August of 1974. It was the same month that Nixon resigned.
Okay.
Because of Watergate. So
Yep.
I wanted to be a journalist, a Pulitzer Prize winning journalist or a foreign correspondent or something like that. And I went to the University of Texas at Austin. And when I graduated, I went to a little tiny, well, it wasn't that tiny, but it seemed like it was on the edge of the world, Midland, Odessa, Texas.
Okay.
If you watch Landman, that's where Landman is filmed. But it was, I lasted 6 months there because it was pretty desolate.
Yeah.
And I was a total fish out of water. But so I worked for a TV station there.
In Odessa.
Yeah, Odessa.
Yeah.
And the interesting thing about the time was George Bush was there. George W. Bush and his brothers were out there making their money in the oil industry. So we crossed paths several times. And I even ate lunch with him and his brothers at a cafeteria in Odessa. Yeah, and he actually ran for Congress out there at the time. This was 1978, and he lost to a Democrat. So that just tells you how much Texas has changed.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And Austin has changed too since then too. I mean, it's a completely different place.
It's kind of unrecognizable. I used to sell my blood plasma at a little dive place on 6th Street. And now, of course, 6th Street, if you know Austin, has been totally transformed into this, music mecca and, great clubs and Austin city limits and all of that. So I don't even recognize the place anymore.
Yeah, I go there for South by Southwest. I've been, 4 or 5 times. And it's like insane, the number of people that go there. And people that live there also just like are shocked on how crazy it has gotten that's lived there for so long.
I mean, you can still find its essence, you can still find the, barbecue joints and the great Mexican food and live music, and the the campus is still pretty much the same, but beyond that, oh my God, it's changed so much. So, yeah. And then after that, I went to work for a small daily in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, a chain of dailies. It was the Richardson Daily News, and I worked there for a couple of years. And then I really wanted to go back east. I was born in Pittsburgh. My mother moved to Texas when my parents got divorced, so I took a job sight unseen, hired over the phone by the Delaware State News in Dover. It's the state capital. Yeah. And I thought, wow, they really must want me, but they were desperate. That's why they hired me over the phone, and they were too cheap to fly me up for an interview. So I showed up at this, with my Toyota Corolla full of stuff. Yeah. And I was there for 10 years. And then I got fired. That was kind of an interesting story after 10 years. And I went to work for a woman who eventually became the first female governor of Delaware. Her name was Ruth Ann Minner. Wow. And she had an interesting story. She was a high school dropout, a widow. Her husband dropped dead of a heart attack, and she was a widow with 3 kids. So she had to get her GED. And she eventually just rose through the ranks and became governor. So her speeches kind of wrote themselves, but that's what I did. I did her communications and speech writing and policy. Then she became lieutenant governor, then governor.
Why did you get fired? I have to know if you can't.
I don't know. I think I just became difficult. I got tired and cranky about, once you've been in a place for 10 years, you start to complain a lot. So I think they just got tired of hearing me. It wasn't about my work.
Yeah.
It was more about my attitude.
We've all been there before, so.
Yeah. And I was young and couldn't figure, I had no poker face back then, so.
Yeah. And then after you left Delaware, where did you go next?
Oh, I'm still in Delaware.
Okay. Oh, you are? Okay.
I kind of parachuted out of her office toward the end of her second term, and I ended up in the Department of Natural Resources. I became I got really interested in land use planning. I mean, I reinvented myself a few times, and so I became a certified land use planner. And I after I retired from the state after 20 years, I worked for towns, small towns in Delaware, and helped them do their plans. And so the longest thing I had written prior to my novel was the town of Laurel, Delaware's comprehensive plan.
Yeah.
With all of the data and the census stuff and all of the, here's how you should grow and here are your maps and all of that stuff. So that was my longest thing I'd ever written until I got into the Master of Fine Arts program at Drexel in Philadelphia. Yeah.
And then is that kind of what made you curious about actually kind of writing like a book?
Yeah, it was kind of one of my regrets, that I had never, I'm pretty much a walking poster gal for reinvention, and that you're never too old to try this or try that or move on or do this and all of that. But I had never written. I'd always wanted to write a novel. So I thought, well, maybe if I pay tuition to this university in Philadelphia, there's no turning back. I'll have to come up with something. And that's what I did. I used it to hold my feet to the fire. And I wrote this novel, which was published in October, called The Salt and Light Express. And it's funny that today we're talking because I'm writing the last scene of my second novel today.
Oh, wow.
The manuscript, there's still going to be a whole lot of work. But that's happening today. I'm trying to end it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what kind of inspired this book?
I grew up in Texas, and it's a place that I never really kind of caught into. There are some already collapsing into the Texas vernacular, but I mean, it's just a place that it was never really me, and I kind of struggled the whole time I was there.
Yeah.
I was a Southern Baptist back in those days, and that's kind of reflected in the book. That she was always kind of worried about going to hell. And in the book, she tries to reconnect with her kin who are in the Texas Hill Country, and it's just, they're evangelical, and they just don't take to her at all. So, so it's kind of a story. I originally wrote it as a story about what would happen if, this person who was a lesbian and older and hadn't seen her family been with her family for 40 or 50 years, what would happen if she tried to reconnect with them? And it was going to have a happy, they all find each other, happy ending. And I realized as I was writing it that there was no way that was going to happen. It's just, one, it was really boring. And two, it just wasn't reasonable. It just wouldn't happen, that she would just drop herself into this very conservative place and it all would be well. She'd have to really change herself, or they'd have to accept her. And they probably weren't going to do that.
Not to give away too much of the book, but what you've kind of told me is that, it's a woman that has traveled and her partner, right? And her partner dies on this trip, basically.
Oh, no. What happens is she's an older woman, and her partner, her longtime partner, dies in an accident that is partly her fault. The main character's name is Chris, and it's partly her fault. So she heads west in a small RV. It's a kind of a road trip. There's a big road trip component to it.
Yeah.
And she's supposed to be burying her ashes at Bryce Canyon, but she meets all these people along the way who help her kind of overcome her grief and her guilt and her loneliness and eventually find love again.
And there is some spirituality in here where she's trying to figure out her spirituality throughout this as well. Is that
Yeah,
correct?
always thought that I wondered if there was like too much in the book, and people, find it interesting because she's kind of wrestling with this, what's the bare minimum you need to be a Christian in
Yeah.
21st century America? I mean, and basically her conclusion is if you believe in the teachings of Jesus, which were, blessed are the peacemakers,
Yeah.
show mercy, be humble, love your neighbor. That should be enough. And she encounters people along the way who agree with her and disagree with her, and people who think because she's a lesbian that she can't even really call herself a Christian.
Yeah.
So that's a big theme in the book.
And so what reaction have you kind of got from the lesbian or the LGBTQ community over this book? Because it's religion is a big deal, for some people where, they grew up religious, maybe they believe in it still, they want to be a part of it, but whatever their religious institution that they're a part of just doesn't want to, they're not accepted, or it's their family or just, their church or temple or whatever. Like, what's the reaction that you've kind of gotten?
Well, I think it helps people realize that they don't have to believe this dogma, this fixed set of beliefs to be a spiritual person, or even to be a Christian if that's important to them, that they want to call themselves one. I have a hard time calling myself one because it's just been totally tainted and poisoned and polluted in our society. But I play keyboards every Sunday at a church in Rehoboth Beach, Delaware.
Oh,
I don't
yeah.
know if you're. I don't know where.
I love Rehoboth Beach. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a quite the gay LGBT mecca.
Yeah. Yeah.
And my church is very progressive and inclusive, and so a lot of the people there have read my book and love it, including my pastor, and love it. And I just conducted a book study there, and Camp Rehoboth is a local LGBTQ resource center in Rehoboth, and they're doing a book club with me of my book in June, and we're going to talk about it. I'm a little like it's funny because when it first came out, or when I was first talking about publishing it, I really kind of resisted the LGBTQ, genre moniker. I just didn't want to be pigeonholed, but it's like, then I don't know if you're familiar. There's a book that came out last year called Atmosphere. It's by Taylor Jenkins Reid.
Okay.
And it's about, she wrote The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo also. But it was about two women who were astronauts. So there's that story too. And they had this relationship when you just didn't talk about it in the 80s. Yeah. And it caused me to kind of remember everything that I went through, in the 80s and even into the 90s, it just coming to hide things and bring a male date to a state dinner because, you couldn't bring your partner. And so I just decided in my second book, I'm really leaning into it, the LGBTQ part of it. But this book it's not explicit. I mean, she's obvious, she's a person who happens to be lesbian and has a lesbian partner, and she suffers some consequences along the way for it from her family. But hey, it's an LGBTQ book, no doubt about it.
Let's talk a little bit about like what you went through in the 80s or 90s, because, in some ways we're switching back to that in some parts of the country, which is kind of scary. So, I mean, I grew up in the 80s and 90s and in Miami, and when I was growing up, being gay in high school was definitely not anything that you could ever be. It just wasn't accepted back then. And now I think that kids are coming out in junior high school, and that the same junior high and high school that I went to.
Clueless. I was pretty clueless in junior high school.
Yeah, I mean, I remember checking out library books at my school library of surfers because I wanted to see the guys with their shirts off. So that was like my 7th grade year or something. So that was but you never would have been able to. I mean, I didn't even know what I was. I mean, I was in denial about it. So I wasn't even quite sure what I was at that point either. So
I had crushes on teachers, which was probably a telltale sign.
Yeah.
And then, I basically made it all the way through college in Austin, Texas, with only a couple of, just some,
hookups.
Not really. Yeah. A hookup or two with a good friend.
Yeah.
And I, immediately felt like, oh, I don't think I can do this, and so I kind of made it. And then I made it through, then I was in West Texas where it didn't even cross my mind. And so it really wasn't, oh gosh, I didn't have any long-term relationships until 1985, which is the one I'm in now, which has lasted 41 years.
Wow,
41
that's
years.
incredible.
Yeah.
How did you meet?
When I was at the newspaper in Dover, she was a travel agent, and we just got to know each other. Or there was a breakfast place, a Greasy Spoon breakfast place.
Yeah.
And that's where we sort of encountered each other for the first time. And if she hadn't been aggressive, just like calling me up and stuff, I probably would have never even done anything. I was pretty passive back then. So I just wasn't ready, to be in a relationship. I didn't know what it meant.
Did you accept who you were, though, at that point?
I think I was getting there. When you grow up in that era, there's a lot of shame surrounding it. Mm-hmm. People have met, and especially since I was a Southern Baptist in Texas, that there was just it took a lot of time to shake off the shame.
Yeah. I mean, I was raised in a Southern Baptist, but I was, so I lived in Illinois till I was 7, and then we moved to Miami. So my grandfather was very, very religious and Church of God religious as kind of where he was. So there's no way. If I told my father that I was gay, him growing up, in that area, Western Kentucky, Southern Illinois, he didn't accept it for the first 6 months, and then I thought my relationship with my family was over in my 20s, early 20s, because he wasn't speaking to me. And then 6 months later, for something clicked with him, and he's like, "All right, you're the same person." And I don't know, our relationship changed where I wasn't close with him growing up, I don't feel. And then we became very close. So it's
that's
funny.
good.
It's funny how those things happen.
It's really good to hear. My mother always thought, until the day she died, she thought I was going through a phase. She thought I'd come out of it.
Yeah.
She really did. And she didn't die that long ago. So it was kind of sad. It's sad that your mother was kind of ashamed or never really, just never accepted you.
But did she meet your partner?
Oh, yeah, she did. She goes, yeah, she's nice, but I don't want to see you call each other honey or touch each other or anything like that. So, yeah, it was rough.
Yeah, well, she knew you were together, though. She just didn't want to have it thrown in her face. She just didn't want.
Yeah, so we're not the throw in your face kind of people.
Yeah.
But my dad, I took one of my first relationships. We drove from Texas out to California to visit my dad, and my dad has been married 7 or 8 times, and he's this libertine or whatever you wanted to call him. Yeah. And he was like, well, you've probably never been with a man, or you wouldn't be this way. And, so we went through that period with him. And then he's the one who called my mother and just to be mean and told her that, I was gay. And then she calls me up crying. And that was the worst phone conversation of my life. Yeah. Because it was rough. They're both gone now. And, I'm now in a place, Delaware is a very blue state.
Yes.
Our member of Congress is the first trans member of Congress, Sarah McBride.
Yeah.
She was elected overwhelmingly by the whole state of Delaware.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it is. And so we're in a good place, and our church is very inclusive. And nobody cares,
Yeah,
as long as we don't leave Delaware.
Yeah, I'm in Massachusetts, and it's the same thing here. Nobody cares. It's very liberal. I feel like I'm in a bubble, especially whenever I speak to friends out. I have a really good friend that lives in Alabama, and she's like, come visit me. I'm like, I don't think I want to ever. Like, yeah.
I had a trip scheduled to Texas. I was going to, after the floods, because that's where all my family lives. I had scheduled a Airbnb to Texas, and I just, it was a really cool place. It was up in the hills above Kerrville, and I really wanted to go back and see everybody. And then I just kind of talked myself out of it over the next few weeks. So like, it's not the same place I grew up. It's kind of an ugly place now in terms of how people treat each other. So I canceled the vacation, and I probably won't go back there.
I lived in Dallas for a year and a half. I guess I've been back in Massachusetts for 3 years now.
Yeah.
So Dallas is a little bit of a bubble too, but I just never felt great there. And then if you left Dallas, like there was some off-site stuff I had to do with my job at the time, and it was like going an hour and a half west to some ranch or something that we were going to, and I'm like, yeah, something doesn't feel quite right here. So I didn't.
No.
Yeah, Texas wasn't for me.
Yeah, I went back to visit, and this is actually in my next book, a fictionalized version of this. I went back to visit my high school journalism teacher who was dying, and some of us reunited for the first time in 30 or 35 years. And I had been in a bubble, because when I told them about myself, it was just like deafening silence. And these had been my closest friends in high school. And some of them were like, I always, questioned anyway. I mean, I just thought, in another life, in another place, they would be just like me, But so that was incredibly awkward.
But did you keep in touch with them over the years, like on Facebook or anything like that, or no?
A couple of them. Yeah. But we hadn't really talked. Yeah.
They were just shocked.
Yeah, I figured they'd know, had figured it out. I mean, I think it was 2013. I wasn't married back then it still wasn't legal, or it was just becoming legal. And I just figured they'd know, and they were shocked. And it was very awkward. So.
And are you still in touch with any of them?
No, not really. Yeah. I have a few friends from high school that I still touch base with on Facebook.
Yeah.
And even a friend from elementary school in Pittsburgh that I was still pretty close to. She was one of the readers of this novel. So, but yeah, nostalgia is kind of another theme in the book, and I've decided that it's not a healthy thing. Yeah. You can be overly nostalgic about things. And and people are all the time in this country, I wish we could go back to where, the way it was. And I just think that's really unhealthy the more I thought about it. So I've sort of like purged myself of all the nostalgia feelings.
Yeah. So will you never leave the state of Delaware just because of where we are in this country? Like, I mean, no, I'm talking about living. Like let's say, 5 years from now, you and your partner want to move to, she's like, I'd love to live somewhere else, experience somewhere else. I mean, for us, me and my husband, we've been together for 27 years. Uh-huh. And we've done 18 moves together over our relationship. A lot of it was mostly for my job. But, we're talking about, we're renting this house we're living in now, and we want to buy this year.
Uh-huh.
And we're going back and forth about where do we want to live. And New Hampshire is it's a little cheaper, and it's only like 35 minutes from Boston. But I don't know if I want to live in New Hampshire, because you go up there and it's a mix. You'll see pride flags, but you'll also see Trump flags. And I'm not sure if I want to be there. So we've
pretty much decided we're not leaving, But we used to talk about going to the Carolinas, to go, because I used to like to play golf. I don't play golf anymore, but, the beach and everything. But even North Carolina could go either way at any time. It can. And then all of a sudden you're victimized, or you've got something, your house is firebombed or whatever. You can't put a Harris. I took my Harris Waltz poster down every night that was in my yard sign, because I didn't want my house to get firebombed, because I live in actually a pretty rural, reddish kind of part of Delaware. Yeah, Sussex County. So, it's just, and so that's why I've decided to really lean into it and tell my story, and tell this, through this first book, and then especially through the second book that I'm writing, because I think people need to know what you go through and what you deal with when you come up in this the 80s and 90s and try to live an authentic life.
Yeah, and I think it's really good, especially for the younger lesbian, queer, gay community who don't know this history. I hate to say this because it makes me sound so old, but there was so much stuff that we did to give the rights that are out there today, even though they're trying to be taken away in a lot of ways. But there was so much stuff that we all did growing up and stuff, when I was in college that we had to go to and fight for and stuff like that. I mean, just like a lot of these kids now are never going to not know what not being able to get married is about. So, there's...
And I'm happy for them, actually. I mean, I'm happy that they don't have to live through that.
Yeah. But now they're living through other stuff, like the whole transgender community, what they're going through. It's just, I can't even believe that we live in this country, that they're making all this, trying to make all these things laws and taking away all the rights and stuff. It just it's crazy to me.
Yeah. Well, it's like I mentioned to you because I work for the governor of Delaware, and this was early 2000s, so not that long ago. And she would have state dinners, and I would ask my male friend to be my date at the state dinner rather than my partner, because it went more smoothly. And I wouldn't, now I'd say, screw that, that would just not happen anymore. It's like either you like me as I am, or I'm done with you. So, but she was a politician. Even though she was a pretty humane and humanist politician, but she still had her limits in terms of what she would accept, from me and the way I lived my life. So so those days are gone.
Yeah. How much of your book was kind of based on some real life events that happened or real life things for you?
A lot.
Really?
Yeah, because in the book, her mother gets divorced and takes her back to Texas, and that happened to me.
Yeah.
And the whole kind of struggle with heaven and hell, and feeling like I needed to go to church even though I really didn't want to, and that happened to me, and the whole Southern Baptist upbringing. Later after I've been in Delaware for a while, I became Episcopalian, and now I'm Methodist. So. And much more at home. But the whole theology of the book, her beliefs are
definitely mine. In fact, my editor started calling me Chris. She's the protagonist in the book, she's just like, let's just face it. This is you, right? I'm like, yeah, for the most part. I mean, a lot of stuff is made up. There's a whole cultural confrontation at the library in this town. And that is made up. That's kind of the climax of the book. Yeah.
And what's your second book? How's that? Is that kind of the next chapter of this book?
No, it's totally unrelated.
Oh, is?
It's called The Next Right Thing. That's what it's called right now anyway.
Okay.
And it's about a woman. She lives in Philadelphia. She has a partner for 15 years who she met when she was mugged in Philadelphia, and she ends up going back to Texas because her journalism teacher is dying, which is what happened with me, but this is a whole different guy.
Yeah.
And she meets up with these people she hasn't seen for 40 years, and there's all kinds of baggage. There's one person that she had a crush on, and they had sort of this liaison that didn't work out because they were both so inexperienced at the time. It was in college. And so she confronts her over this 40 years later. And then it's also a love story between her and the person she's now living with.
Okay.
Yeah. And so, she and it's also about the power of a good teacher, a mentor, because this guy was their mentor in high school and helped shape her career and the kind of person she became.
Awesome. So when's that one going to come out, do you think?
Well, I just put the final touches on it today.
Yeah.
And now it has to be scrutinized by a lot of different people.
Yeah.
Maybe probably next year. Yeah.
So,
but it's much more LGBT than the first one. I just, like I told you, I just decided to lean into it and be myself as a storyteller. So
that's amazing. And you should really, I would just say reflect on that sometimes, because we need more of that in the world, where people are kind of telling the stories. Yeah. And especially in today's world and stuff, the way that things are going, I think there's so many people that will read this and will appreciate it and stuff. And that's amazing. What's your secret for 41 years?
Compromise and just
believe me, I know.
Just, a comfort level, I don't want to say we're complacent, because we're not. We've traveled a whole lot. She was a travel agent. So we've been to a lot of different places, and she's not me at all. She was a travel agent for 37 years, and that's all she did. And I've done all these different things, and she's sort of put up with that. But she's a fan. And, when I said at age 60, whatever, I think I want to go get my MFA. She's like, okay. And I think I want to write a book. And I think we just we're sort of yin and yang,
Yeah.
We complement each other, because she likes to cook and I can't cook worth anything. And, so she's the home person and I'm the person that keeps reinventing myself. So I think we just made it work. I could have nitpicked her to death, and she could have nitpicked me to death over the years about why don't you do this and why don't you do that. But we just decided to live and let live,
Yeah. So. I mean, I love people that are in love and that have been together for so long. Like I wish all my friends were in relationships. I don't know how your friend group is, but a lot of my friend groups they're in open relationships now, and it's like I don't know, the new trend. I guess it's not so new. Maybe it's just maybe people are just talking about it more. And we never went down that path and never will at this point. But it's just so many of our friends are doing that, and some of the relationships are surviving and some of them are not. So it's kind of interesting.
Doing what? I didn't.
Open relationships where they're opening their relationship up. So, if one of them is traveling, they're allowed to hook up with somebody else or whatever. One of my friends that are a couple, one of them had a boyfriend on the side for 4.5 years. So it just seems like sometimes it's one person is enough for me. I can barely handle that sometimes. So why would I want somebody else?
I don't think I could handle that. I just, I'm not wired for that.
Yeah. It's interesting how some people are.
Things are.
Yeah. I'm happy with the way things are too. So it's interesting how how people just change and relationships change and people are more open with things, but it's not for us. And it took me a while. This podcast actually helped me understand people's, people are different. And if people, if that's what makes people happy, I'm not judging it. I think I did definitely judge it at one point. But now if people want to be open or in a throuple or be monogamous like us, then great. I'm
I feel pretty boring sometimes,
Oh, me too. Whenever I hear the stories, especially with all the apps that my friends are on, and sometimes meeting 2 or 3 guys a day or something. I mean, God, I am so boring compared to them.
Yeah.
So,
but I'm with you. I'm trying not to be judgy. And it's not my business.
Yeah, it's not my business. And if it works for you, then great. So, and if it doesn't hurt anybody, then good. That's great. Yeah, this podcast has taught me a lot about things that I never thought it would. So it's interesting. Maybe your writing has done the same thing for you, where it's kind of taught you some things.
Yeah, I mean, when you sit down and write, 90,000 words, and you're sort of alone, and the keyboard just kind of takes you away to different places that you really weren't expecting to go. Yeah, you do learn a lot about yourself. And, I've done a fair amount of research. I've discovered, I used to, writers like to, they like to poo-poo AI.
Yeah.
But AI for research is amazing. I use Perplexity. I don't know if you're familiar with it.
I've heard of it, yeah.
And I finally discovered it, and it's just I had to find out what was the statute of limitations in France in 1973 for a hit and run accident, And,
wow.
I'm like, I don't know how to research this. And then somebody said, well, have you ever heard of perplexity? And so I plugged it in there, and then it came up like with 25 sources, translated from the French, So
what is the statute of limitations, though? I have to know that.
3 years.
Really?
Yeah,
wow.
It wasn't even considered a felony back then. How about that?
Huh.
That's good cocktail party knowledge.
Yeah, exactly. I will put the book in the description of this video or podcast, however somebody is listening or watching this. It's called The Salt and the Light Express. And it's on Amazon and probably every bookstore everywhere.
Yeah.
Yep. So I'll put a link to it on Amazon, or I think you have a website as well. I'll put a link to your website.
LeanneWalling.com.
Yep. I'll put a link there as well.
Yes.
And good luck on your next book. I mean, this book, I'm going to buy this book as soon as we end this podcast, and I'll read it over the next week, and because I have a trip coming up, so it's perfect timing. And I'll read it.
Thank you. Let me know what you think. I really would appreciate it. Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely will. So thank you so much for being on. And like I said, I think you should really take a moment sometime to just think about how amazing it is that you're this author that's giving people this, this knowledge about what you kind of went through, because they have no idea, I think, a lot of them. So I think it's really amazing that you're doing that, and that you're being open about who you are and stuff. So that's really great.
Yeah, that's been the eye-opening experience, is learning to be myself through this process. Yeah.
Well, amazing. Well, thank you so much for being on. And
Thanks,
if you have not subscribed to the podcast, please do. And don't forget to go buy Leanne Walling's book, The Salt and the Light Express. Thank you so much for being on, Leanne.
Thank you, Zach. I really appreciate it.